Anthropic recently unveiled Claude for Opus. I'm curious what your take is on that announcement.
It's sort of amazing the conversational context it's able to retain and the ability to generate all of that code. I never had to leave my editor, didn't need to be in the code to be able to create what I personally believe is a best in class expression of my potential. And this was all with Claude.
Welcome back to Tech Teams Today, the show where we go deep with engineering and product leaders shaping the future of software. Today's guest is Prabhu Inbarajan, Chief Product and Technology Officer at Colibri Group. He spent 20 years leading global teams and building massive scale systems across companies like Blackhawk Network, Intuit, and eBay. Prabhu, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So you built systems for everything from e-commerce and payments to fraud detection and ad tech. What project or challenge early in your career helped shape how you lead now?
So the foundational aspects of my career came from the following lessons, right? And the most hardest thing is to build the simplest of the systems, Occam's razor, and the ones that are meaningful for your customers and the ones that scale. So almost I spent the last close to 20 years building systems at transactional scale at the heart of solving customer problems. So every time I go back to solving something, it goes back to the key idea of what is it that we are trying to solve, who is it that we are trying to solve for, and what is the most simplest thing that we could do. I mean, simplest doesn't mean that we're trying to shift work or be lazy, but what's the most simplest of solutions that could solve the problems. Like, if you look at iPhone was a classic example. I don't know that I'm still fascinated by some of the design elements, that how kids learn features. There is not a proper design training that you give for your 5-year-old, yet they're able to swipe up and down and get to your content. So I think that simplicity is at the heart of everything. It's at the heart of how you scale. It's at the heart of how you win customers. Therefore, it was a very critical part of my career training, if you will, right? And it came on early from a lot of very good mentors, starting from eBay, PayPal, all the way down to what we are doing at Blackhawk and now at Colibri.
Yeah, so no matter how technologically advanced you get, trying to make sure you're keeping it simple and thinking of, ultimately what problem you're solving.
Yep.
So speaking of Blackhawk, you helped architect a massive AI-based consumer and payment solution there. What's one thing you think people maybe underestimate about leading at that scale?
Well, I think the class of problems that we need to solve. First of all, I had a lot of help. I mean, it was a very competent team, so I wouldn't say it was all just one person's effort. But collectively speaking, there are deterministic problem classes that you're solving, and there is like probabilistic classes of problems that you're solving. AI is sort of very generalized. I mean, come to think of it, 10 years ago, AI was neural network, it was machine learning. There is any form of like systemic intelligence that we can bring to the problem. We broadly classified it as AI, and we now are evolving into more advanced forms of this generative AI and reasoning, and keeps building and getting better and better towards the world of AGI. But all this said and done, the fundamental human problem on the other side of some things are going to be, is this good or is this bad, right? I mean, but we are solving shades of gray. So I think that estimating that shades of gray and be able to deliver the best consumer experience to the right level of audience. If you go overboard, you're accepting fraud. If you're not being rigorous, then you're rejecting a lot of customers on the premise that they're bad, right? I mean, so this is a very probabilistic thing, and so the underestimating of the problem, whether it was 10 years ago, whether it is now, is how do you get into the area of that efficient frontier where it's just right? I mean, what signals do we want to get? So data about the problems that we're trying to solve is ultimately the fuel to solving these problems, right? That's what I would suggest.
And zooming out a little bit and focusing more on the leadership piece, sort of having led global teams across continents, what's been sort of your North Star in managing at that scale and sort of keeping culture in mind?
I think believing in top talent, believing in sort of the trust in the potential, show them the problems to solve, not solve it for them, right? I mean, regardless of where in the globe that they are. I mean, could be. I mean, over the course of last 6 7 years at Blackhawk, we also started a strategic dev center in India, going from zero to now running at a 400 people scale. We went to 0 to 200 right in the middle of COVID. I remember being in India, setting up the infrastructure for our strategic dev centers at late 2019. A month in, I was traveling back in a flight and everything was shut down for COVID. But yet from that point on, the plan still held, and the people rallied around the mission, and we were able to get to a fairly mature state of the organization. It was one of the most efficient pillars on a relative time scale that we could ramp up. So how, right? I mean, in the middle of most challenging crisis, like all the things that were
Right.
going around the world, yet people are hungry, people, a lot of talent out there. And therefore, the question is mostly about, do you have systems, processes, and the scale at which you can trust people and sort of deliver things on a mature basis. So this all goes back to the problem that we are trying to solve in this case is the people problem, right? I mean, how do you channelize all that talent towards consistent goals, and how do you deliver regardless of where in the globe they might be? So people constantly respond to call to actions. They're hungry, and the risk versus reward is a consistent thing, and so you mobilize them on that and show them the mission and the what, and most times they figure out the how, and that's what people love, right? I mean, if we constantly get into underestimating, lack of trust, it's going to be a bit suboptimal. I mean, it might be locally optimal for what you're trying to do, but it may not be globally optimal for what you're trying to achieve. So that's my lesson.
And going into AI a little bit, you've worked on machine learning systems long before the generative AI
Yeah.
wave. What do you consider is actually new in the AI shift happening now?
I think that generative has put a very strong twist, right? I mean, it's going from a traditional machine learning training, semi-supervised, supervised to unsupervised, right? I mean, there was always this element of like, can I trust something that's like completely unsupervised? Can I trust, like, what level of rigor do we need to have? Despite the level of maturity in the industry, I think the adoption curve was always sort of very subjective, right? I mean, the number of autonomous systems that sort of like till date, I think self-driving car is a good example for me. Is how much of that, despite the perception that's out there, like, do we really let our car drive? I think what I've seen in the large language models and the generative nature of these large language models have changed is, I think at some level it has solved this trust problem inherently. People are now more willing to trust ChatGPT for not mission critical. You're not trying to be in a operating theater or mission critical launch, but for common sense use cases, people trust this a whole lot. In academia, there is a lot of trust building. So therefore, you got to like, I look at this on a what has changed the trust equation. I mean, if we hadn't trust those autonomous systems, what changed? I think it's the level of reach. It's the level of common sense problems that generative nature of AI has tried and solved. I think that's hitting the basis. People are saying, okay, I'm willing to take 80% accuracy and I'm willing to make it on my own. And therefore, the AI has suddenly become a buzzword because of, I think, that mass adoption, the mass class of reach that it has delivered. Yet, what you call, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? I mean, people are willing to accept good and do the perfection on top. So I feel that that's very distinctive. Now with that, trust is self-reinforcing, so one thing leads to another, and you got multimodal systems, you got, like, more and more of that evolution happening at a rapid pace because there is demand signals out there. So I don't know if it was Kevin Wire or some I listened to Kevin Wire in a recent podcast. It came in multiple discussions even on our own, but the rate at which these things are evolving, it has picked up pace. Like the GPT 2 to to GPT-3 was what, 4 years. GPT-3 to GPT-4 was like a year-long cycle, and like now you're reaching million users in less than an hour. It just is phenomenal because of that.
Yeah, and it's just getting faster and faster. How do you draw the line between AI as infrastructure versus AI as a product or as a component of product?
That line is very hard for me to determine, right? I mean, AI as a infrastructure at a few levels, right? I mean, AI as the infrastructure for work is a lot easier for me to consume. I mean, I don't mean infrastructure as in an appliance scale. So we tend to think of all AI, like, take Colibri, for example. We are an AI first company. The mindset that we sort of got into at the onset of this AI evolution was our mindsets will have to change to adopt to more, trusting and thinking along with the system, using AI systems as partners. Therefore, it's plugged into every single workflow that we have in the company, whether it is the meetings that we are having, whether it's the tools that we are using, whether in everyday decision making, think about strategy, brainstorm. Like, there is that partnership with AI systems, and how's that partnership manifested? Not by like collection of tools. It's just fundamentally plumbed into the infrastructure of the company. So it's easier for us to think about AI as a second nature. I show up in Teams, it's like automatically transcripting, recording, taking notes. And so I don't need to. So there is that level of infrastructure. I think you're also talking about product infrastructure and product experiences, and both are equal parts of the problem, even as we are, the most recent class problems that we are solving. We have a very distinct line. Like, the problem classes that infrastructure is solving on the AI side, whether it is the agentic orchestration, whether, now we are thinking about, in the past, we had thought about capability blocks as like collection of services, collection of widgets. Now the model has evolved to what's our agentic library, what set of agents can we build, and then, apply the agentic orchestration on top to say, okay, here is a problem, here is the library of agents, now help me orchestrate across all of this, right? I mean, so that's a fundamental infrastructure class problems. It's not truly solving a clear problem per se, but it's solving a meta class of you're able to build these individual agents, and you're able to apply, sort of AI on top of it to say, how do I combine these building blocks of Lego building blocks to create, like, more creative workforces. So that is, to me, at some level, an infrastructure class problems. Now the experiences ride on top of this infrastructure. So if you think about where Colibri is heading, and the class problems that our consumers are facing, like, these are professionals that are trying to upskill in their everyday profession. They're trying to navigate between their day-to-day jobs and how to get effective in their jobs, or how to get into a new profession, and through that whatever their career life cycle that they're trying to manage, from being a entry-level professional to somebody who succeeds at their job and they're happy about it. That's the problem set that we are trying to solve, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a nursing professional, and in very mission critical industries, and being able to provide them with the right level of experiences, where, education being a fuel for their success. And how does the education and training that Colibri provides in terms of like regulated education, exam preps, and through their career, right? I mean, how do you get them positioned and situated in front of employers, the soft skills and hard skills? That, how does AI experiences show up every day? How do they adapt to the needs of the consumer? That's experience, and one can't exist without the other. We need to have foundational infrastructure to solve this. And even efficiency perspective, all of these things are sort of adding to the cost of our service. So how do you continue to optimize that? How do you have these foundational models work in an effective way so as to deliver a lot of value to our customers? Infrastructure. How do I drive value? How do I give that personalized tutoring? Somebody's taking a CPA exam tomorrow. How do they understand the hardest topics in the easiest ways? That's experience. And AI plays in both places. And that's what we are excited about.
And what's your take on, a lot of companies are going through this, especially sort of more legacy software products of, do I rebuild, from scratch and sort of go AI native, or can I just take AI components and sort of bolt them onto our existing product?
That's very relevant. Shravan Goli, he's our CEO of Colibri Group. He does say right to win, right? I mean, so what the learning is, I think we can do it all, right? I mean, it's not that whether it's AI native or AI adaptive is a choice that we all have, but there is also a test proof scale, right? I mean, going back to what problem are we trying to solve and what's the best way and the most simplest way that we can prove that we are truly solving that problem and customer need gives us the right to win to do it on a much more robust level, right? I mean, so if you think about a lot of enterprises, their challenges are it's super hard to sort of take something from zero to scratch at a production scale and to scale that and to deliver that, right? I mean, whereas a lot of surfaces today are these, what you call adaptive surfaces, meaning they trying to convert them into AI native is going to be a lot of work, but trying to integrate them with existing AI solutions. So when we think about it in Colibri, we think about it as capability building blocks. So we have AI capabilities that truly optimize for what you call lower integration cost and seamless experience. So when you hit that sweet spot, I think the transition from AI adaptive to AI native just becomes an easier problem because you can test and prove customer problems in an adaptive surface, whereas you can scale that when you have the right to win. You can scale. That means you can actually make a lot of bets and you can try to test a lot of things. Ultimately, scale the areas where you see the best product market fit.
And pivoting a little bit to sort of leadership concepts. So, what are some of the lessons you learned at Intuit and Blackhawk about aligning product vision with technical architecture?
I think that alignment is consistent, whether the product aligns with customer problems and whether the solution aligns with the problems that the product is trying to solve are all sort of one, and it's sort of a coherent thread. Oftentimes what that leads to is some sort of a hierarchical model in my mind, the technology follows the product and therefore it's sort of one is contingent on other, right? I mean, the class problems associated with who's driving what in an organization, and a product mindset oftentimes is, am I trying to solve the right customer problems, and is my solution relevant to the problem, and what is the best way to test, prove, scale? And oftentimes the mean interpretation of this is a waterfall model, right? I mean, usually the product leads the discovery and, figure out customer problem, blah, blah, blah. And then, somebody from technology now looks at it and says, okay, how do I come up with a solution and implement this? I don't really, what I've learned is that there is a better way to do this. And I've been privileged enough to be part of certain companies that have encouraged that culture, that the product led mindset is sort of consistent. It's applicable to technology as it is applicable to a product manager, right? It's not a role, but it's mindset. So therefore, when you think about technology solutions, it should be truly rooted on whether we operate in something called a two in a box model, right? I mean, you got a product counterpart, you got a technology counterpart. Both are equally qualified, but in terms of like their experiences, their dominant strength is slightly different. The focus of product manager is like a product discipline. Technology is a technology discipline, but they do the pseudo product manager and a pseudo tech lead role anyways. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is technology is an equal part of customer discovery. Technology should understand, what's the voice of the customer, what's the pain of the customer, what problem we are trying to solve, and parallelly think about multiple manifestations of how a solution could look like. And especially now with the advent of even yesterday, I all I had to do, and honestly, I wouldn't give myself credit as the best technologist out there. In the sense that, putting pen to paper is not the same as putting hands to keyboard and cracking out production grade code. But that equity now is now possible with think about all the tooling that's happening, whether it is the GitHub copilots, whether it is Cursor, whether it is one of these other tools. Amazing level of I don't need to be a technologist to be able to go build. Has that equity problem has been solved. solved. So now, the equivalent side, I'm a technologist. I need to think like a product owner, and I need to think about customer problems. Is the gap that, we are trying to solve. And again, like, it's about the right tooling, being in the right conversations. But when I think about broadly technology as is applicable to product, it's about right sizing the solution, being able to test proof scale, being able to sort of find what you call create well-lit paths in cases where things are highly uncertain about how the end game is going to get played out. So there is a lot of role that technology can play in making product discoveries and product market fit efficient. And that's why I personally fell in love with the role of like a product and tech role that gives you an equal voice in both tables, and being able to sort of bring both of these things together uplift, right? I mean, so you're not shortchanging one at the cost of another is truly, I think that's what led to where I am right now.
And do you think that'll become more common? Because it's pretty rare to have both of those in the same role, especially at the C level.
Right.
You know, the traditional org design is you have your chief product officer, you have your chief technology officer, they work together. But I also can see why having that be the same person has a lot of benefits in and of itself.
Yeah, both has its trade-offs, right? I mean, would I have the best in class technologist? Would I have the best in class, product strategist? I'll be honest and I'll admit I probably am not the best in class of in either extremes. But you would also argue that a balance is equally important, right? I mean, being able to see and connect dots and being able to prioritize the right things and being able to push both of these disciplines with like equal weightage. It's sort of what sort of a sweet spot and what sort of trade-offs are we willing to accept, right? I mean, on one hand, if you have the best in class of everything, then who's going to align the voice of these two? Who's going to sort of balance these perspectives and get them into a working strategy that can move in the same direction, right? I mean, this is about two people rowing the boat in the same direction. The boat is definitely going to go faster. 1%, the boat is going to go in the same direction. It's guaranteed. But the other that the trade-off is it's going to be slower, whereas in the other case, there is an alignment element and different points of views. Honestly, I do believe it's a cycle thing, right? I mean, there is a cyclical. It's not one or the other is successful. Every organization will have to make it its own, and every organization will go through some cyclical aspect of we tried this model, and if it worked, great. If not, then we are going to transition. But more importantly, I think it's about the next generation of professionals or the people that have the passion to do both, right? I mean, it's not that our industry is split in a way where everybody's career interest is towards this. I've seen that cycle. I've followed that cycle. I've sort of done technology. I've filled leadership gaps. Like, it all happened opportunistically to fill leadership gaps in product. And so therefore I got exposed to the role, but therefore also that it was important to solve customer problems. And so as you go through these cycles, then you get to develop both of them as dominant skills. And then, you feel the passion for this. So honestly, if you ask me, I think it's subjective. It's by the individuals and it's by the nature of the firm that we are trying to go. If you ask me which is good for innovation, one versus the other, I think the vote is still out there. I'd love to think that the model that I'm pursuing is probably the best, because that's really what Blackhawk had. My prior boss, who's my mentor, Nick Sathe, amazing person at this, and he sort of showed what the right model could be, and I'm sure that there is like leading industry models on that. But I'm not saying that this is the only model that can succeed.
And sort of, how do you prioritize roadmap bets when the tech is moving faster than your org's ability to absorb it?
Well, the presumption there is that you would let tech move faster than the org's ability, right? I mean, some industries it's absolutely essential. I mean, semiconductor or anywhere research is deeply rooted. So whether it is pharma, drug research, technology has to move faster than our ability to go to market. There is a lot of uncertainty in what we do and what we fail. But as you go upstream in more value-based markets, I think there is they have to evolve at that pace, because research is not the key driver of success, but it's the ability to go to market and ability to sort of bring all of this goodness. So what I feel consistently happening is you got to prioritize product research, but not to the extent that it outpaces the rest of the organization in terms of, like, people now have to think about how to get value out of all of the technology that we are building. So technology for the sake of technology, or technology that product and business has to retrofit and market, is probably not the most optimal segment. But then again, I keep saying it's all subjective to the industries. Technology leads the way in many cases. High risk, high reward industry segments, that drug research is a classic example. Like, rate of failure is pretty high, the cycles are pretty high, and if you're not doing that, then you're not able to sustain in the market. But the more upstream value driven industries, retail, consumer digital, they have to evolve at the right pace, and they have to be equi-paced. So when you see technology moving faster, my gut reaction is going to be that, okay, we need to understand the reason why. And if that's appropriate justification, great. Otherwise, we pull back. But we need to match technology to the pace of where our market is heading, right? I mean, you certainly have to be ahead of your go-to-market team, both technology and product. We cannot just be chasing deal revenues, but you also have to be appropriately far enough that the go-to-market is realistic, not too far ahead and nobody has any idea why.
Right. Just to pivot a little bit on the leadership side. So I'm curious, as in terms of, with the pace of innovation sort of multiplying exponentially, sort of how does that impact how leaders should approach this new world? So I would ask, sort of, how do you think leadership has been impacted, in how should leaders approach earning trust and driving impact in this world where technology is moving at such an exponentially faster pace?
And especially that pace is like accelerating. Like, it's now we are at that leading edge of that innovation cycle, right? I mean, somebody was mentioning this a few days ago. The rate of evolution of technology has drastically accelerated. That's really what you're saying. Like, it was from internet to the mobile to the cloud to where we are with AI, and now the rate at which AI is evolving. This is going to be a continuous learning for the leaders. In the past, if I had a mainframe profession, I'm set for life, and people have lived and retired in those mainframe things. My age will show, in those aspects. But today, that leaders are learning, they're constantly on their toes. They have to break open these, like, unlit paths, because their teams are right there with them on like what's ahead, and there is going to be a lot of biases, and the role of leader is to be able to go clarify the pace at which the organization evolves, and they have to learn a whole lot. So I feel like, on one hand, all this like Gartner research and all the industry research of what's going to be the state of the art has been a primary driver of, like, where leaders will lead with that vision. But these days, like, with that capability set changing rapidly every single day, now that long range, like, the durability of leadership is now truly dependent on the ability to learn. And I think I might be repeating myself if I said on the call, like, last night I was struggling with an idea, and it was like Figma was too restrictive. I had to show a lot of flexibility in click-through prototyping. All I had to do was to have the motivation to be able to fire up cursor and start from conversational ideas to go create a full-blown experience that we could show to people. Like, now, is that expected out of my role? No. But why am I doing that? It's because it's limiting my abilities to express. Today's systems are limiting my abilities to express my ideas. And we have newer systems that are evolving, that are on the horizon. Now think about what it would do for an engineer who's like, trying to come up with the next 10x idea, right? I mean, I think it just amplifies the scale at which your impact is. And so now the performance of leadership will become, I anticipate the performance of leadership will become much more clearer. There'll be class of leaders that are way ahead, and the others that will fall behind, just based on their ability to learn and scale with the rest of the organization. But this is only going to follow downstream in the rest of the organization, right? I mean, so this has given us so much equity that, now I can match the pace of an engineer. Now the engineer will be like, another 10x. So I'm literally looking at like how my entire organization can scale. Therefore, there are some leaders with that charter and that are on that continuous learning path. And there will be others where their organizational benchmarks are going to be behind, where the curve is. So I feel that the leadership performance will become much more critical with the advent of where we are going with AI.
Yeah, and it seems to always come back to adaptability and sort of willingness to
Mhm.
learn, regardless of sort of what tech cycle we're in. So I'm curious what you think of sort of what the future of teams look like. A lot of people are talking about, the next $1 billion, the next unicorn will come from a single digit team. Do you think we're entering an era of permanently leaner teams, or do you think orgs will sort of come back in terms of size?
I don't have a formulaic model, but when you generally look at the pace at which technology evolves, specifically AI evolves, and the promise of AI and what it does to the GDP, I think the models are clearly saying that we predict a significant GDP contribution due to AI productivity, and we also see labor shortages and more people that are leaving some of our existing markets. And so when you look at those sort of signals where your demand signal is increasing, your supply signal is moving on the other side, I think it's inevitable that the technology drivers behind this will have to enable smaller teams to deliver bigger values. And that's the only way that this promise is going to occur. So if you believe in that outlook of this is true, then therefore walking backwards, you're going to see smaller teams. But I also see that the bigger bets are going to come from like, these sort of, small innovative teams, and the rest of the organization is going to follow suit. It might take a while for, perpetually small teams being the model. But I already see writing on the walls that independently the data points are saying that small teams can accomplish something really, really big. Like today, I don't need to have a full-fledged like business analyst to go write all my product requirements. If I know what I'm doing, I mean, if we have all the context, I think the notion of a robo advisor, robo investor, robo product manager, the only thing that we haven't got into is a robo engineer, which is not truly dispositioning of people. It's making people capable of doing a lot more things than they traditionally used to. So they can now lift the weight of what used to be much larger teams being in much smaller form factors. And therefore, can they deliver the next $1 billion idea? Absolutely yes. Like, the previous bootstrapping cycles and funding cycles for startups are likely to now reduce, or if they are, then the cost of builds are going to reduce for sure, right? I mean, the go-to-market costs and the marketing costs and other things might just go the way that they are, but the cost of product builds, the cost of product innovation will significantly reduce. So yes, the answer is that's where we are heading, and that's where everybody will move. But there are large adaptive surfaces yet to be enabled with this, so it will have to catch up with that pace.
So I want to ask you a little bit about some recent AI developments. So Anthropic recently unveiled Claude 4 Opus, sort of claiming top spot in terms of coding capabilities compared to other LLMs. I'm curious what your take is on that announcement.
I have to agree that it's sort of amazing the conversational context it's able to retain, and the ability to go generate all of that code. It's like I never had to leave my editor or my prompt generator. I mean, whether it's a voice prompt or whether it's a text prompt, like I didn't need to be in the code to be able to create what I personally believe is a best in class expression of my potential. And therefore, and this was all with Claude and with Anthropic. So I feel like, in the past, again, it's a catch up cycle. It's going to, particularly put the other models in their toes, and it will evolve. But if you ask my opinion, I think, what I've had the best in class experience with like, the latest models that are out there, and I feel like it's there to stay, right? I mean, so the specifics will be there, but that is going to be a distinct winner, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Claude.
So, going into our sort of closing lightning round, what's one piece of leadership advice you wish you had earlier in your career?
It did come midway, but you can be alone and you can go fast, or you can be with a team and you can go long. And going long is really what I've believed in, and continuing to exercise that muscle. Like, how do you take everybody with you along that journey and go long so that you're not alone in what you're trying to do, and you're stopping. So this is not a sprint, but this is a marathon.
And what's a product, system, or moment in your career that you're most proud of, but maybe don't get asked about a lot?
So came from Blackhawk. I think our payment experiences back in 2014 had a lot to desire. I think the place where we left this, we had streamlined all of our payment experiences across all our companies. We had created more componentized models of delivering best-in-class payment experiences, and then embedded across all of our current surfaces. It's not just the technology behind it, but it's the alignment, it's the people, their belief, and it's also the true customer problems that we needed to solve. So my most proudest moment was when we lit up, like, the most recent payment methods. And it might not look like much, but think about being able to light up modern payment methods, the Google Pay, Apple Pay, Klarna, whatever you have that's out there now, being suddenly available to all our payment surfaces, and being able to receive those best in class payments. Not just that the best in class payment is also the best in class fraud and everything below that, right? I mean, so the commerce platforms being able to evolve, but yet all the while trusting our payment surfaces or payment capabilities that we brought. I think that was a very proud moment. That sort of showed the power of, like, with alignment and with trust, you can do everything. But with the right, productization of the customer problem, we can scale, right? And use simplicity. So it brought all those ideas to life.
What's a quote, book, or maybe a leadership framework that's guiding you right now?
I've sort of particularly read and keep going back to Marty Kagan's, like, the Transformed, and that's something that I got introduced back at Blackhawk, and now having that rigorous product operating model, and being able to be more customer centric, to be able to go drive institutional value. It's been a very recurring thing that keeps coming back over and over again. The most recent thing is at Colibri, it's also working backwards, the Amazon way. So, as you're planning for a product-led growth, got to think about the customer behaviors that we want to model, and we got to let those key drivers of that behaviors be the drivers of a financial model. So, working backwards is amazing that way. So, those two things put side by side sort of defines most of my day-to-day job.
And for our listeners, sort of what's the best way to stay in touch and sort of follow what you're doing at the Colibri Group?
LinkedIn is obviously the best way, and as we are trying to push Colibri into the next era, we strongly believe in publishing what we do to benefit industry and audiences. So you will most likely you can look forward to engineering and product blogs. But also, I'm available on LinkedIn, and stay in touch, and I'm happy to share what I know.
All right, we'll include the link in the show notes. Thanks for coming on the show, Prabhu. That was really interesting, especially from someone who's seen sort of every layer of the stack and every phase of leadership in tech. For the audience, if you like this episode, feel free to subscribe to Tech Teams Today, and check out the show notes, and tune in weekly for more conversations with engineering leaders. Until next time, keep building and keep learning.